evening. I am the Wendigo. Tonight's tale is about a wristwatch that uncovered unspeakable terror upon a small town. This tale is called That Should Not Be There. I recently found a wristwatch at a thrift store. They were selling it for pocket change, so I would be taking a chance in purchasing it. However, I was able to handle it, to wind it, and confirm that it actually worked. I was even able to put it on a timegrapher app that I have on my phone, and I took some readings, and it seemed to be working pretty well. So I purchased it. I set the time and put it on my wrist and wore it home. However, a couple of hours later, I noticed that the time was not accurate. In fact, the seconds hand had stopped moving. Now, I am no watchmaker by any stretch of the imagination. However, I decided that I would take the back off of it and see if maybe I could see what the problem might be and resolve it myself. So I removed the case back, and to my astonishment, there was something inside the watch. There was a small piece of paper folded and tucked between the case back and the movement. I removed the piece of paper and set it on the counter. As I was unfolding it, I realized that there was a short clipping of hair tucked into the paper. I carefully set that aside on the counter and spread the paper out. There were 2 words handwritten on the sheet of paper. "Help me." I stood there frozen. I had no idea what to do. After long deliberation, I decided to take it into the local police station. So I got in my car and I drove across the small town that I live in. I entered the police station and told the receptionist my story. She told me that I could speak with a Detective Jones. After a moment, he came walking out. He was a tall, slender man, well-built. His suit was ill-fitting, but his hair was fixed neatly. He took me back to his desk, where I recounted the events of the day again. Now, I don't follow the news, even local news, so I was completely unaware of a rash of disappearances that had been occurring throughout the county. Because of these missing teenagers, the detective actually took my story seriously. He asked me if he could keep the watch, the paper, and the hair, so that he could run DNA analysis on it and look for any clues that he might be able to find. I, of course, agreed. After speaking with the detective, I got in my car and drove home, thinking that would be the end of it. However, I was wrong. A week later, I received a call from Detective Jones. He asked me if I could come into the station and speak with him. So I agreed, and when I arrived, I was taken back into an interrogation room. He sat me down and positioned himself between myself and the door, so that I would feel trapped, confined, claustrophobic. He asked me if I knew a Jennifer. I cannot say her last name here, asked me if I knew Jennifer. I assured him that I did not. I had never met anyone by that name. And he said it was very interesting that she had gone missing just a day before I had shown up with the watch. And in fact, she worked at the very thrift store that I claimed that I had purchased it from. So how can it be that I didn't know her? How could it be that I wasn't the one responsible for her disappearance? I told him repeatedly that I didn't know her. I'd never met her, didn't see her, and certainly didn't do anything to her. I know I should have asked for a lawyer, but I felt adamant that if I just tell the truth, he would believe me. I was interrogated for about 4 hours before he finally, reluctantly, let me go. He assured me that I would be hearing back from him and ordered me not to go anywhere. And I didn't. I returned home, called out sick for a week. I was shaken and terrified. I couldn't think straight. I just sat there in the dark, dreading the phone call that might come. Is it possible that I could spend the rest of my life in jail for a crime that I didn't commit? While I was sitting in the darkness of my house, Detective Jones went to Jennifer's family to confirm the handwriting on the piece of paper. They gave her sheets of journals and other handwritten notes. And sure enough, the handwriting was a match. Jennifer wrote "Help me" on a small sheet of paper. It was her. He took the evidence back to his office and was analyzing the paper more closely when he noticed that there was a watermark on it. It was a portion of a familiar logo. A local bank. And this is a small town, so it's just a small, locally run bank. Detective Jones went there to speak with the bank manager. He asked him if Jennifer had an account at the bank, and the manager confirmed that she did. As Mr. Jones was speaking with him, he glanced over to his right and noticed something interesting. Along the back wall was a large bank vault. However, during business hours, the vault door was left open. No one could access the interior of the vault because there were bars across its opening with a door in it that could be opened by bank employees. Inside the vault were safe deposit boxes, completely lining the interior of the vault. Detective Jones got an idea. Maybe if she had a safe deposit box, there might be a clue of some kind inside it. So he asked the bank manager if she also had a safe deposit box with the bank. The manager said yes, in fact she does. Detective Jones asked him if he could see what was inside it, but the bank manager became indignant, and he said without a warrant he wouldn't be opening anything for the detective. So Detective Jones decided to take a different tack to the investigation. He waited outside the bank and asked questions of those who were coming in. He asked them if they had safe deposit boxes. He showed them a photograph of Jennifer and asked them if they've ever seen her. Have they ever seen her waiting to get into the vault? Not a single person that he asked said that they had a safe deposit box with the bank. This was very strange. So of everybody in the town, not a single person had a safe deposit box except Jennifer. At this point, Detective Jones decided maybe it would be worth the effort to get a search warrant. The judge who issued it was irritated and reluctant to do so. However, with the rash of disappearances, pressure was being put on the entirety of the legal system, so he reluctantly signed the order. Detective Jones and a deputy returned to the bank with the search warrant. The bank manager greeted him with a bright smile. He seemed pleased to see him again, like an old friend. However, when Detective Jones presented the search warrant, his face went ashen white. He looked terrified, frantic. Detective Jones told him that he wanted to see what was in Jennifer's safe deposit box. The manager was indignant. He was screaming about how her family should be the ones to see what was in there, not some pig detective. However, reluctantly, he gave him access to the vault. And as the deputy stood near the entrance, Detective Jones had the manager lead him to her box. He told him to open it. And still swearing and cursing the detective, the manager unlocked the safe deposit box. The detective slid it out of its drawer-like container within the wall and set it down on the table in the center of the room. He opened the lid and was shocked. He stepped back, horrified. The remains of human hands were inside the box. Just bones, neatly folded and set into the center of it. The bank manager turned to flee, but the deputy blocked his path, drew his firearm, and told him not to move. Detective Jones turned around and told the bank manager to open another box. But the manager argued back, spittle flying from his mouth. Surely your search warrant only covered Jennifer's safe deposit box. But the detective pointed to the skeletal hands and said, "The situation has changed. Open another box." With trembling hands, the bank manager unlocked another safe deposit box. The detective removed it, set it next to the other one, and opened it. This box also contained human bones, along with a necklace, a barrette. They opened other boxes. Every single safe deposit box in the bank contained human remains or trophies from murdered victims. The bank manager was arrested, and after Detective Jones had wrapped up his work at the bank, he returned to his office late at night to do paperwork. Sitting on his desk was a sealed evidence bag that contained the watch, the paper, and the hair. He glanced over at it. Where was the paper? He picked it up and tore it open and carefully emptied its contents on the desk. The paper was no longer there. Neither was the hair. And the back of the watch had been put back into place. In fact, the watch was ticking, and it was set to the proper time. At the trial, the bank manager was sentenced to death row. And after the trial was over and the case was closed, the detective was kind enough to give me my watch back. I still own it to this day, and it works pretty well. However, when the time comes for me to send it off for servicing, it isn't going anywhere until I've first taken the back off and confirmed that there is absolutely nothing in it but a watch movement. And even then, the entire time it's away being serviced, I'll be terrified. What if somehow, mysteriously, magically, something appears inside the watch? Like a hair or a piece of paper. And this nightmare just repeats itself all over again.